Hi everyone, thanks for inviting me to deliver this talk on analyzing COVID-19 disinformation using social media. My name is Dr. Wasim Ahmed and I'm an associate professor in digital business at the University of Stirling, and I'll be sharing with you some of my research that I've been doing looking at kind of disinformation and fake news that's been shared on various social media platforms in 2020 and also in 2021. And I'll be talking to you about some of the research that we published in the Journal of Medical Internet Research. So thanks again for inviting me, and I look forward to sharing with you my research on this topic. So if we think about all of the conspiracy theories that have been shared on social media, there's been quite a lot of varied and various misinformation and fake news conspiracies that have gained kind of interest over the last year or so. This particular insight by Statistica has listed some of the kind of popular misinformation conspiracies that exist, and they range from miracle cures, New World Order, Deep State, Wuhan lab bioweapon, that Bill Gates had created the conspiracy theory, 5G and COVID-19 and misinformation, population control, and the pandemic conspiracy theory as well. So there are quite a few kind of different conspiracy theories being shared on social media, and this insight really kind of highlights the volume and number of conspiracies that people are kind of sharing on social media platforms. So what we did in our research is that we used the method of social network analysis to really try and identify who is spreading misinformation, to identify key groups that form around specific topics, and really highlight popular information sources. So this is a graph that represents the metadata of thousands of archived documents, which represents the social network of hundreds of League of Nation personnel. So this is just an example of what a social network looks like. So we have a kind of number of nodes kind of clustered to each other, and the larger shapes represent individuals who have more influence in the given network. Social network analysis has a lot of interest from the popular culture as well. So TV programs might show social network analysis, kind of mainstream movies, and so forth. And in recent in a recent episode of Homeland, which is a really popular American political drama, in one of the episodes, Species Jump, they actually do some social network analysis to identify a group of actors who are spreading disinformation on the social media platform Twitter. And we can have a look at that movie clip next. So this was from the movie clip. So this was the TV show, and essentially what they showed was the method of social network analysis being applied to kind of identify misinformation. So those red nodes, essentially red circles in this TV show, were spreading misinformation, and essentially this is what we were actually doing when it came to kind of COVID-19 misinformation and disinformation being spread on various social media platforms. So it was interesting to see this represented. Social network analysis has been around for many years, and I've read that at least up until at least 1970s, back in time, security forces might have been using social network analysis to kind of understand the relationships between different individuals and kind of key users as well. There's various tools out there that can be used to analyze social networks. And there's a couple of popular tools: Gephi, iGraph, UCINet, and NodeXL. And in our research, we've been using NodeXL because of our familiarity with Microsoft Excel, and how NodeXL is essentially a Microsoft Excel plugin. That's what we were interested in. But there's also other tools out there as well. So you've got things like Gephi, which is free and open source. We've also got other applications, iGraph, UCINet, and so forth. And the good thing with NodeXL is the Social Media Research Foundation are often running events around NodeXL. So if you are interested in what I'm going to be showing you next, if you search for Social Media Research Foundation NodeXL events, they've got English events, they've got 3-day summer school events. They've also got events aimed at Spanish speaking in individuals as well. And also they're looking into other languages as well. I think they also have a Korean event as well. So there's a couple of different ways to kind of learn about NodeXL as well for anyone who might be interested after this talk. So essentially, when we were analyzing our conspiracy theories, we were drawing upon influential work by Dr. Mark Smith and colleagues, including Ben Snyderman, who's kind of really well-known researcher. And essentially, what this group of researchers found is that on Twitter, when we analyze topics, typically there's different kind of network shapes and structures that emerge, and it's not too dissimilar to real life. For example, if we are given a political topic, or if we've given a political party, you'll notice that in society generally you might get polarized people, polarized groups. So by that we mean is we might get two groups of people who kind of fundamentally disagree with each other, and they don't want to entertain kind of the views and thoughts of other people and users. And similarly, we might get people who are really popular, whose views and opinions are kind of amplified and shared with each other. And these kind of sociological networks, we can also observe them in social media on Twitter as well. And this really nice piece of research essentially classified thousands of Twitter networks, and actually came up with 6 types of networks, ranging from broadcast. So very simply, it's a user who tweets or posts something influential, and they retweet it with high frequency. Or you might get someone who replies to a number of users with high frequency, and we call that a support network. We get brand clusters when people just tweet but don't mention or retweet anyone, and we get polarized crowds and so forth. So it can be a lot to take in when you're first kind of confronted with these types of network shapes and structures. But there's some further reading as well. So this article on the bottom left hand side might be of interest if you're interested in learning more about some of the methods that we've been using in kind of analyzing social media and social network shapes and structures. And before diving into the conspiracy networks, we can just take a look at some popular brands and what their network shapes look like before we take a deep dive into the conspiracy networks, just to get an understanding of what the network shapes and structures essentially tell us, and how those conspiracies actually compare to some of these big brands that might be worth millions, billions, even billions of dollars, and how even the conspiracy as a group of users on Twitter can get quite a lot of reach. So this is the social network graph of Unilever. It's a very large organization, and they own many different brands. So PG Tips, very popular in the UK, Lipton, and Signal, and Dove, and a few others as well. So some I don't even recognize some of these brands, so they're so international. And in this particular network graph, network cluster, what NodeXL does is it takes everybody who mentions Unilever in their tweets, and it clusters them into different groups based on how they actually mention one another. So it doesn't look at if someone is liking a tweet, it looks at who is mentioning who in the tweets. And by mention, that includes retweets, quote tweets, replies, and it uses all of that information to come up with these different groups and clusters. And in these particular network graphs, on the top left hand side of each of the graph, it also adds the most popular keywords associated with those groups, and it also numbers those groups as well. So we have G1, Unilever, Dove, Young, C, Fine, Business, Leaders, Changers. In group 2, we have things like Unilever, products based, detergent, growth, laundry. And what we can do is we can take a glance at some of these network graphs and visualizations and kind of get an insight to what those groups might be speaking about and talking about. My key takeaways on this particular network visualization would be that there's one very large broadcast group, G1, top left hand side, where when Unilever tweets, its followers are retweeting and interacting with it. And then we have G2, which is a brand cluster, and then lots of other networks as well. And it can be quite a lot to take in when you first kind of come across this. But this was just a flavor to see what the conspiracy theory networks might look like compared to a brand network. Just also quickly, I can show you Coca-Cola, another popular brand, well-known brand. This is the Twitter network of Coca-Cola, and we have a brand network isolates structure in the top left-hand side where people just tweet about Coca-Cola because it's so well known. They don't actually mention and retweet other individuals. And we have a number of groups, and there's so much happening around Coca-Cola all around the world. So there's many languages in those keywords as well, and people are kind of talking about different things, different events. So we have Cristiano Ronaldo mentioned quite a bit in those groups. I believe as the data was taken from June in this particular network, I believe there was an incident where Cristiano Ronaldo moved a Coca-Cola can out of the camera shot and told people to drink water. And we can see in this network graph there were so many small groups, friends, kind of conversing with each other on Twitter in kind of talking about this happening. So these network graphs can kind of reveal what people are saying and kind of talking about different topics. So coming back to the conspiracy theories, fake news, and misinformation that we've been studying, in one of our studies looking at 5G and COVID-19, the conspiracy theory on Twitter, we found that there was one very popular conspiracy shared around the start of 2020 and really picked up towards the end of April and May 2020. And that particular conspiracy theory was arguing that the mobile communications network 5G was responsible for COVID-19, in the sense that it might be weakening people's immune system, and that it wasn't just a coincidence, it was the actual main cause. When we came across this, we thought there's no way people can actually believe this conspiracy. But it turned out that the telecom workers who installed these phone towers around 5G were being verbally abused, and shockingly, there were also attacks on telecom towers. So 5G phone towers were actually being vandalized, burnt, and some of these engineers were having to run away from really angry groups. Shockingly, there was also attacks on a hospital's kind of 5G tower as well. So there was a lot of incidents taking place, not only in the UK, but also across Europe as well. And this was the social network visualization on this particular conspiracy theory. So in our paper, and the link is underneath this visualization, in this paper published in the journal Medical Internet Research, we had taken everybody who was tweeting and talking about the 5G COVID-19 conspiracy, and we clustered them into different groups, and we found different interesting patterns and shapes, such that there was an isolates group where people were just tweeting without mentioning each other as the topic became popular. There was a broadcast group where people were being retweeted with high frequency, and we can actually dig down and deeper and see what types of users are actually responsible for spreading these types of conspiracies. Can we stop these accounts? Are they kind of authority figures? And we also found a group labeled as Group for Activism account that contained one account that had sent hundreds of tweets just tagging people, trying to raise awareness of this particular conspiracy as well. And ultimately, Twitter did shut this hashtag down. The account tweeting people, it did shut it down, but it took them quite a while to actually do that, and it was able to send out over kind of 300 or so tweets. And when we looked at the influential users kind of sharing this conspiracy, we found that it was mostly ordinary citizens. That 5G dedicated activism account was also influential. We also found that people who might not necessarily tweet themselves about this topic were being tagged so much they became central figures as well. So if you tag someone so much in a network, it might also appear as an influential person. And we found that the account of Donald Trump, for instance, had been mentioned quite a bit alongside some of these conspiracies, and they became influential. There's also a YouTuber as well that was kind of influential and came up in our data. We also looked at whether people were linking to high quality or low quality information sources. And unsurprisingly, we found that most of them were low quality information sources or biased media. So we had InfoWars, known as a fake news website. We also had Rayguard. This was highly suspicious because this website actually sold or claimed to sell protection against 5G radio waves in the form of kind of wearing clothes and other things. And we also had a number of other kind of low authority sources as well. So no peer-reviewed academic sources, no real backed kind of fact-checking websites or health-based websites. So really low quality information being shared, and that's an interesting finding that is applicable to other conspiracies as well. So we always find that with these big claims, there's very little substance often to kind of back up these claims, and one way to do that is actually to look at the URLs they reference and point to. We were also interested in finding out the actual percentage of people who believed in this particular conspiracy, if it's a high percentage, low percentage. So what we can do then is take all the tweets that we captured over the 7-day period, extract a sample, in our case 233 tweets, and analyze them to find out the actual percentage of people who believe in this particular conspiracy. And we found after our content analysis that around 34.8% of tweets actually claimed that 5G and COVID are linked. So only 34% of people actually believed that, and there was the rest of the users thought that they either expressed a general view, or they shared kind of anti-conspiracy theories, or they shared a kind of humor related to this particular conspiracy. We also found that might have inadvertently raised the profile of this conspiracy, because if so many people are sharing a joke or humor about it, it's kind of exposing it and to new audiences, and a lot more people were kind of seeing the tweet, and it became to kind of trend on Twitter as well. We also found a number of really strongly worded tweets as well. So there were people tweeting others and encouraging others to kind of go and vandalize other 5G phone towers. And this kind of content analysis that we did, we kind of anonymized a number of tweets, and we found that there were kind of really strongly worded tweets in here as well. And a lot of these tweets were taken down, and Twitter did start to add warning labels to 5G COVID-19 tweets as well, so as the pandemic unfolded. And one of the questions we often get is around kind of the balance between allowing social media users to have free speech, to kind of share humor and so forth, and the level and extent to which these platforms shouldn't get involved in kind of remove content. And there are kind of gray areas, but for example, some of these tweets here potentially kind of contravene some of the policies that these social media platforms have, and we kind of came up with some recommendations in how to deal with this. So these were our recommendations. So we noted that one method of countering fake news is to kind of detect it rapidly and address it head on at the time it occurs, not kind of the week after, the next month, or the year after, because it's already kind of done its damage by then. In this particular case, we found that there was a dedicated individual Twitter account that was actually spreading this conspiracy, and it was kind of messaging quite a lot of people. It was closed down by Twitter, but we argued in our research that it might have been better to have tried to kind of close this down a bit sooner. And we had other recommendations as well, as I mentioned before, around educating the public in reporting some of these conspiracies rather than kind of engaging and resharing them as well, even if it's for kind of humorous purposes, because it might give that kind of more visibility as well. We also recommended the idea of health authorities and governments kind of collaborating with popular culture influencers to kind of shut down some of these conspiracies as well. And in the UK, at least, there were collaborations between local councils and kind of influential celebrities to kind of combat some of these misinformation sources, and even for kind of vaccine uptakes. We also looked at other conspiracies as well. So there was one really international conspiracy theory, the Film Your Hospital conspiracy, and this involved people tweeting and sharing a conspiracy which argued that the whole pandemic was a hoax, and it encouraged people to go and film their local hospital. So it wasn't just this kind of 5G and COVID-19, there were so many different conspiracies, and we again used similar methods and published a paper in the Journal of Medical Internet Research, and we were able to uncover the kind of key users and key narratives in this particular network. What we did a bit different in this paper is that we were able to try and find out whether the people who are tweeting, whether it's accounts that might be fake, for example, automated accounts controlled by malicious actors. So I can kind of share with you some of those findings. So the study took a 10% systematic representative sample of users, and we ran it through Botometer, and we actually found that only 9.2% of the sample kind of resembled highly suspicious account behavior or bots. So actually 90% of the accounts, that they were probably genuine accounts. So one criticism that comes with these conspiracies is that people argue it could be automated accounts, could be just people kind of controlling a group of those. But in fact, our research was showing that it was very low probability that some of these accounts were bots, and the majority of them were potentially just a kind of individual normal accounts with not that many followers kind of engaging and tweeting about this. There are also other conspiracies as well, and we were working with the Social Media Research Foundation, and they were mapping many different conspiracies over the last year or two. Others that became really popular as well, just wanted to highlight, one was a conspiracy called Plandemic, and another one was hashtag expose Bill Gates. So there were other conspiracies that kind of became really popular as well, and we kind of future work will also be looking into this. Just some concluding remarks. Disinformation campaigns can distort public opinion and lead to people developing kind of anti-lockdown, anti-vaccine beliefs, and it's likely to impact the kind of COVID-19 case levels in different regions, and it could also lead to kind of future restrictions and the shutdown of retail and leisure venues. The fact that there were rumors also spreading recently in the UK around kind of certain brands requiring vaccine passports led to kind of threats of boycotts on social media with some brands as well, and there were those impacts being felt as well. So a lot of these misinformation kind of campaigns can have really negative public health outcomes. And the director of the WHO and other organizations as well have really strongly criticized some of these social media platforms for allowing this kind of misinformation to be spreading. I've added in the references to the two papers I mentioned as well. So if you're interested in checking them out, feel free to do so. So that's everything for this presentation. Thanks very much again for the invite. And I did add my email address at the start of the presentation, and I will send these slides across as well. So if you do have any questions about any of our research, or interested in collaborating or finding out more about those training events I mentioned, feel free to get in touch, and I'll be very happy to hear from you. So thank you once again.